Hi Stitchers, welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. I'm Lena, here with my co-host Amani, chatting with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work.
And on today's episode, we are chatting with Sam Sundos, a Brooklyn-based artist. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, Sam. We are so excited to have you join us.
Thank you so much for having me. It means so much to join
Okay.
you all.
So Sam, we always like to start off with our guests by getting to know you and your family's connection to Palestine. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that with our listeners?
No, of course. So my grandmother, the grandmother on my maternal side is from Lid, and then everyone else in my family is from Haifa and Akka. So that was it. And then obviously in 48, the move happened, the exile. And so my parents were both born in Damascus. My dad was born and raised there, moved to the States, I think in like the late 70s. And my mom grew up in Damascus. We have family in Saida. She grew up, did like some boarding school in like Czech Republic and stuff like that. But then she ended up coming to join my dad in the early 80s. And then I was born here in Moorhead, Minnesota, which was a little bit different.
Yeah, how did you guys wind up in Minnesota?
Well, my dad, he came to the States on the promise of like, he got a scholarship to come study his graduate studies in the States. So he ended up in North Dakota studying agriculture. And my mom just loved that guy that much. And so when they ended up coming together, they had a whole ceremony I think they had it in Damascus. And then she flew out and they were here. And it was just them two Arabs in Fargo. I think there was a lot of like, it was an immigrant community there, but I think they were
interesting.
And then me and my sister were born there. And then my dad just hustled and, tried to climb that ladder. And we ended up in like Davis, California for a little bit, Cleveland for a little. And then my youngest sister was born in Cleveland. And then we settled in San Diego when I was about in fourth grade. But yeah, and, during that time, we'd have my like Teta on my mom's side come visit us for like long stretches. It'd be like, I think sometimes she would stay for like 2 years at some point, which was like one of my favorite things because that's actually where I felt I can get into it, but like she was my real connection to like Palestine and like the stories of the Nakba. Like that was my bedtime stories. It was like her being like the utopia of what Palestine was, pre-48 of like Jews and Christians and Muslims and we all lived together and it was so beautiful. And then the Israeli soldiers came and, knocked down our door and we had to like walk for days and weeks and blah, blah, blah. So I just remember those stories so much. And then I think around like 10, she went back and started living with my uncles who lived in Europe. And so I kind of lost connection, and having my parents of that generation, they were just like, just say you're from Lebanon, like if they ask. But I'm like, but you guys are born in Damascus. Like, yeah, but we have family in Lebanon, and Americans love Lebanese, and you're American really, so it doesn't really like matter, But I grew up in a very Arab household with a lot of Iraqis and Lebanese and Syrians and Palestinians all coming to like party at my parents' house and stuff. And we would always be the Palestinians in the group. So I was just like so confused, and I was just like, I think at some point I hit my teenage angst years and I just wanted to be like a white surfer dude from San Diego, so I didn't allow it to kind of take over too much of my like mental space. But it was there. I look like this. I've always looked Arab. Like there's no denying it. So there's always just like kind of rolling with the punches. I grew up in a very predominantly white neighborhood. So it was kind of like I just was trying to find myself really before trying to like connect with any identity beyond what was in front of my face. But then coming to New York, I've been here for like 16 years. I've just been like immersed in with other Arabs and like culture. Everyone's just like, I am who I am. It doesn't matter. So seeing that, I was just like, yes, this is it. And then it was like timid steps towards connecting to being Palestinian again, because it's kind of, I don't know if you guys feel this sometimes, but Palestinians, like, you got to prove you're Palestinian a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, well, you know, and then so kind of opening up to my parents and trying to slowly piece everything together allowed me to fully immerse myself, and then educating myself with the help of like social media and knowing what books to read and that kind of stuff through the sharing of information. I just like deeply connected. And then with the birth of my daughter, like 4 years ago, I was like, I need to make sure that she knows that she's Palestinian. She's half, but you know, seeing other half Palestinians gives me like, I'm like, oh, she'll be fine. She'll know she's Palestinian.
It doesn't matter exactly.
So yeah, and I think that slowly led me into like just fully embracing Palestine and not being afraid of saying, yeah, I'm 100% Palestinian. And the only reason I ever questioned it is because the Zionist project like had succeeded in that at that time, you know. So yeah.
100%. I just want to also go back to something you said in that about your teta and how she was just this strong connection to Palestine for you, because I feel that in my soul. Like that was the same for me in my sitto, and I feel like a lot of people have that connection. And I just can we just take a moment to give some love to Palestinian grandmas, because oof, man, those women are amazing. And they really, I think especially for children of the diaspora, they really helped us experience what they experienced through their storytelling, which I think is important. And, you know, they're a generation that unfortunately is, not to get like all depressing, but like they are a generation that is slowly leaving this earth, and it's really important to cherish their stories and carry their stories on. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But I love that you said that. And I love that she was your connection, your first connection to Palestine too.
Absolutely. And well, we can talk about it more, but I do believe like even like it's so prevalent in Tatreez, like the stories of Palestine are kind of really held in my life, like through on the backs of like Palestinian women, and like in the classes that I'll lead, or like the voices I'll try to listen to are Tetas, are like women like you, who are, I'm just like, oh yes, okay, like this is a thread that I can like, that is nurturing to me, you know what I mean? So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, I think leading into that and kind of going into the world of Tatreez, can you bring us along to your Tatreez journey and where that started?
Yeah, so I think early pandemic, I was spending a lot of time in my studio painting, and both me and my wife had lost our jobs, so it was like easy for me to go spend 3 days, like 8 to 10 hours, because like we just switch off. And then my wife like got a job, and so that meant I had to kind of like take care of my daughter's name's Rami, so I'm just gonna refer to it as Rami. So I have to take care of Rami, and in my like young parent mind, I'm like, oh, it'll be cool. I just need something clean that I can work on, that's mindless, and I can just like, you know, embroider while she plays with her blocks, and then I'll make dinner and blah blah blah. So, but I still wasn't ready to do Tatreez yet. So like I got like a beginner Etsy thing to learn like backstitch and running stitch and all this other stuff. So I did that, and I got it the first night it came, and I sat and I started doing it. I'm like, I'm not being a parent and doing this at the same time. So, but I became obsessed with it, and it was a way for me to like, it was all on a hoop, so I would draw, and then I would like fill it in, and then it was like really cool, and I really like enjoyed it, and it was a very like meditative, beautiful thing, and I kind of felt like I was like close to Tatreez, right? Like I wasn't like doing it, but like, you know, I could sit in a circle and we could blah blah blah. I was just so like afraid to like break any rules in Tatreez. You know, I was just like, this is my art. I can do what I want. I can take like poetic, like, you know, freedoms with it. So I did that for a long time, and I did some shows, but it was just like a time for me to like, I just couldn't make that leap. And then one day my friend, who's a Tatreez artist, he was looking for assistance, and I'm like, I can do it. Like, let me try. So I went to his studio, and he just gave me a practice. He gave me a piece. He's like, you know, like I knew the basics, right? I knew how to thread. I knew how to go front behind. I knew like, it wasn't that I just needed to like learn how to read a motif, learn how to like, I loved not having a hoop. That was the most freeing thing, when I could get rid of the hoop. And I was just like, so he gave me a tester. He's like, go home, work on it, and bring it back. And then once you prove that you can do it, we'll start working on bigger pieces and blah, blah, blah. So I went home. I was like, how long do I need for this? He's like, if you're good, like 2 weeks. It took me like 4 weeks, right? Because you're like still balancing stuff. And then, you know, you learn, you're like, and the pressure of learning, like, I'm like, oh, I'm getting paid. I'm doing it for someone else. I need to make this nice. Like, I can't cut any corners. So 4 weeks pass. I bring it back. He's like, okay, cool. You did it. It's great. And I just remember like, but like those times where you just like, you do a big chunk and you're just like, why am I not lining up right now? And you have to take it all out.
Yes.
I remember my wife would be sitting there and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to undo this whole thing. She's like, the work you've been doing for 2 hours, you got to undo. I'm like, and then it took me like an hour and a half to undo it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but there was so much pleasure in it. Like, I didn't care. I was like, a lesson learned. It was like such an obvious lesson learned, like right away. I was like, all right, fine, let's do it. So then I continued, I got back. So I started working for like 6 months. I did big pieces. I just did the work that he was asking me to do, and I was doing my own work on the side. And then I was like, I want to do my own piece. So I have a tendency to just jump head first into things. So I'm just like, I'm going to do a waste canvas thing. Didn't know anything about it. So I put paper clips, I put waste canvas on a sweatshirt that I liked, and I just did the Sabayata lid motif as like a homage to my teta. And it worked. And I was so afraid to take the waste canvas off that I tried to convince, I was like, it kind of looks good with the waist canvas.
You're like, it's a vibe.
Yeah, it actually looks cool. I might be doing something new that no one thought of. But then once you take the waist canvas off, it's so like beautiful. And then I had a piece I was still working on for him, and I think October 7th happened, and I just like world kind of like stopped in my head, and I just nothing made sense for me to like work on like art or anything like that. I kind of finished the piece that I was working on for him, gave it back to him, and I went. My sister had just recently moved to Maryland, so it was easy for me to get to her. So we all went down to visit. My parents came. It was like my nieces, my daughter. It was just like really nice, you know. And I just started working on like a little piece, like in between dinner. Like, you know, I would like make the hummus, then I'd go back and sit and like do like a little piece. And I ended up making like, just really diving into the Palestinian embroidery motif book. And kind of like, I never wanted to break the rules, right? Like I never wanted to like step out of balance on that. So I just started looking at things that made sense to me. So like I did another cactus, you know, motif. And then I was like, oh, and then that grows into like, what are the sham? So I was like, okay, so that makes sense. Like the lid went to sham, and then there's like flower pots. So it was a cool way for me to like, I learned that I could just story tell using like this language that's already been there for like thousands of years, you know? And being taught the correct way to do it just kind of gave me the confidence to like go off on my own. So I did that piece. It took me a long time. And then I just dive into stuff. And then I got like a 3 foot by 2 foot piece of canvas, and I worked on a Palestinian flag, and I did it. And,
Wow.
And I wanted it. I mean, I'm smiling as I was doing it now, but it was just like the only thing that made sense to me as like an artist to do was to just live in Palestine in my head, you know, and let it come out through my fingers, and like, you know, and it's sad because it was about like an 18,000 to 20,000 like stitch piece. And it was all roses. And I was like, oh, this will be like a dedication to like the lives lost or something. And I'm like, and now we're like nearly double. I just couldn't, you know, it's just like, but it was, that part wasn't important. But yeah, and then from now on, I'm just like, that's just what I'm doing now. I'm like, I got like Wafat's book, and I've got like the Palestine costume book. So I'm just like, I love like the missiles, like, you know, like it's really cool. Like the Intifada dresses are some of the coolest pieces of art.
They really are.
And so it's just been a really cool journey, and I'm like so glad that I ended up getting into it. I'm glad I got into it the way I did without like, I don't know, there is like I was just, you know, afraid to like cross the line or do something without the amount of respect I have for the craft. So I feel good, and then yeah, so now I'm like able to like hold little workshops, and like I just love teaching, and it's just really cool to be surrounded by these like communities.
Yeah. So. We've actually talked about this before, and something that you have mentioned a few times is being cautious not to break the rules, and like having this deep respect for the art. I think I think it might have been Wafat who had mentioned like Palestinians tend to be very hard on themselves. I think of all her students, she was saying Palestinians are the hardest on themselves because we do feel this obligation to respect the history of the art and not deviate from that. But I do want to say, and we'll link it in the show notes, like the Palestinian flag that you're referencing, I think it's so cool. And I think it's like such a cool combination of tradition by using those traditional motifs, the traditional techniques, but making it something of today, and especially making it something of the voice of the diaspora too. And I just want to kind of probe you, like, have you been now gotten the confidence to break some of the rules and make your own rules with Tatreez?
I want to, yeah. I mean, so I do a lot of backstitch pieces too, and it's becoming more figurative, where I'm like working on like someone with like a fez, or like now I'm working with a woman with like a veil around her, and I think I would have. Now I want to like cross stitch her thobe, even though like the back is all like back stitch, but like the dress would have like a mini like front piece, like a chest piece, and then like kind of doing that. So it's like, so yeah, I guess it wouldn't be. I would still use the same motifs, but it'd be incorporating it into me, as me as an artist. Whereas, and I feel like Tatreez for me was like me stepping into something bigger and kind of like trying to carry that tradition on in the best way I could. Now, even though I'm still going to push that and learn more from that, I can bring it back into my like art world and like incorporate it into the thing. Like I would paint like women and thobes, but I wouldn't. I'm like, why didn't I just do the actual like, at least the motifs, like reference it so that when someone sees it, there's a story within the story of that one painting. So, yeah, I think, but I'm always afraid of getting called out. So I'm just like, so I just got to think about it before I just jump in. Because it's very like, I mean, as a man coming into this situation and like, especially leading workshops, I'm like, of course, like, you've been doing it for a year and now all of a sudden you're going to like try to teach. And all I want to do is help. So I don't even say I'm a teacher. I'm just like sharing this knowledge. I'm sharing this workshop. You can know better than me. I promise. There's one lady like raised her hand while I was explaining something. I'm like, oh, fuck. Sorry. But I was like, oh, no. Here we go. And then she just wanted to make sure that everyone in the class knew what the Nakba was. I was like, thank you so much. I was like, yes. Does everybody know like these references that we're doing? So, yeah, I just, I don't want to fight with Palestinian women.
That's the fight that you can't. I don't want to. I appreciate that.
So yeah, I think. I mean, it's always an evolution as an artist, but I feel like this is just something that can cement me in something that is like brings me closer to my, my history and my background that I feel like I'm getting further and further away from all the time as we like become more American or become further away, to get taken further away from our home. But yeah, so I like the tradition, but I do think it will like come back into my world again.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's like Amani said, I feel like the Palestinians are the ones who are the most hardest on themselves. And like you look at Tatreez over time and there have never been rules. Like honestly, these rules are totally made up. Like clean back, everyone has a different definition of what a clean back is. How you arrange the motifs, that has always evolved as women have evolved over time. Like the reason that you had specific motifs from specific villages before 1948 was because they were not being exposed to as much. And naturally, after the Nakba, there was a lot more exposure, unfortunately, due to negative, realities, but they were now exposed, and that's how they started sharing but they shared amongst themselves. Like that was the point, because they were evolving as women themselves. I feel like, oh gosh, I wish we could like remove this misconception, this myth that there are all these rules of Tatreez. Like, I think
slowly we will.
Slowly,
I'll leave it to you all to do that. I'll follow lead.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, so I do have a couple of follow-ups because I loved listening to you talk about your Tatreez journey, and hopefully I remember these follow-up questions. But one of them was, you mentioned that you were doing these pieces for your friend. So were you selling those pieces? Was he selling those pieces on your behalf? Is this like part of your job? Do you sell Tatreez as art?
I've done some like art assistant work, and some of that is that there's such a high demand for some of these pieces when you get to a certain level of art that they just need help in creating the pieces. So you kind of just help. You get paid. It was a way for me to get paid doing art and then help him. Yeah, he would go show for a show or whatever it was. So yeah, that's what that was.
Wow. So see, the thing is, like, I'm a selfish practitioner. Like I have to love you a lot if I'm going to give you something, even if it's for sale. I have to love you a lot. So I'm amazed that you were able to do so much Tatreez work and give it out very early on as well.
I felt amazing. Like it was a paid internship. I was able to learn, and then I knew it though, and I think he knew it too. He's like, you want to go do your own thing. He's like, I think, take the time, go find your way. And the funny thing about selling stuff, I'm just like, I don't know, like that Palestinian flag, I don't ever want to give that away, until a museum calls,
right.
And wants my
and even then, it's still yours. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I have a hard time. But I also want to give it away a lot, but I'm also like, it takes me forever.
Yeah,
that part.
So even exactly. Like, I want something that looks so cute. Can I do that? Like my mom or my friend's mom hit me up. She's like, Sam, I love it. Can I please have one? I'm like, well, yeah, all right. Like, what's the budget, Susie, and like what size? And she's like, just like maybe a 2x3 foot one or 48 inches by this, and I have like $300. I'm like, girl, I love you so much, but like, I'm like, I'll make it work. So I'm just gonna like use a canvas size that big, but like a motif here, just so and then it'll end up with my, with my friend one day. But it's just because I want to do it for everyone, and then I don't. The machine stuff isn't the same, so
it's not. Oh my God, that is so funny. Okay, so another question that we have for you, and you kind of touched on it before, but we'd love to just kind of dive deeper into it, which was this idea about how Tatreez helps Palestinians in diaspora better connect to Palestine and their Palestinian identity. Can you share more on like your perspective on this and maybe like the different ways that it has done that for you? I know you mentioned a few of your projects, but if you wanted to elaborate more as well.
Yeah, I think the most obvious thing is like I never really looked at a Palestinian map. Like I never studied it. I just knew like, oh, Tetas was from Elid, like everyone else was from Haifa and Akka, and I'm like, well, those cities are super close. Like I didn't know that, and like, oh, that's the port town. Like, oh, that makes sense. Why, like, I don't know. And then so studying the motifs, I end up like looking at the map and being like, oh, everything's connected. So then I feel like now that I'm looking at like the same way we studied the American map, I like now know the geography of Palestine, and I noticed that like the occupied territories like West Bank are like in the mountains, and you're like, I wonder why that is, and then, you know what I mean? Like you start seeing like, and so it all starts making more sense in understanding how the occupation has like, manipulated the whole situation, or like, I never know the right word. I'm using the most harsh words when I reference them, but you know what I mean?
Hear you.
Like, so it's done that, and then. And even like sometimes titling the pieces, like I turn to like a lot of like Palestinian poets or like writers and stuff like that. So that's really great. And poetry is such a heavy thing, and you have to have such a mastery of whatever language that it's being written in, and like it makes me want to learn Arabic more, and it makes me not worried to like speak. Like I understand it, I just spoke it like Mkassar, so it's like I'm always like embarrassed to like say things.
We understand.
You're in good company. You're in such good company.
So it's like in that, and then like it's just all over my house now. Like the books are there, the pieces are there. So like I have a 14-year-old stepson who's white, and he's just like, whoa, he knows stuff now, and he's like, he tried it. It's not in his blood,
Yeah, it's fine.
God bless him, he's fine. But like it just has made our house feel a lot more Palestinian because there's just like. The same way, like, I'll make lebne or hummus, and it's just, like, in our house now. You know what I mean? Like, that's just a normal thing. And now we have, like, the books, and my wife is super, like, she's more gnarly than I am sometimes. I'm like, all right, let's just, like, chill for a second. You know what I mean? Like, but no, it's really cool to have like a supportive partner in that. So it's just our household just feels a lot more Palestinian, which is what like I just want, because I grew up in an Arabic household, even though it wasn't like Palestine flags everywhere. It was like, this is an Arab household. Like, doesn't matter. Like, I think my mom and my dad feel a lot more like Shami, you know, just because that's like where they're from, but or where they grew up. But my dad, it was really this. I'm gonna share the story. It was really sweet, but my dad came to visit with my mom, and we went to a Syrian restaurant, and he was like, "Oh my God, you have like Hassan Kanafani in your book, and you have Mahmoud Darwish, and like all." He was like super excited to see this in my house because they never pushed it on me. They were just like, "You're American, go like, don't anchor yourself with this like struggle." But he got super excited, and we went to the Syrian restaurant in the neighborhood, and it was really sweet. Like the server came and they started talking, and the server was like, "Where are you from?" To my dad, he's like, "Asli Falastini, bas you know, min Sham." And my mom, the server walked away, and mom was like, "You've never said you were Palestinian before." Like that way, you know what I mean? And like that. And he's like, "Oh, I think there was like this sense of like, oh, there's like,
it's okay.
It's okay. It's all right." Because I think, you know, with them, they saw their family who are, you know, die. Like they lost lives for this thing. And so it was just really nice to see that, like, I think our generation is like fearless now because we've been given that like American confidence. Where
literally, yes.
Like, I am what I am. You've told me to go back. Great. Give me the right to go back.
Exactly.
And we'll talk about it. But like, so it's just been a really warm experience. And then I just really respect the culture and everything about it. So like, I take it, I'm someone who really dives into stuff really fast and like tries to consume it really quick and understand it. But with this, I'm just like, this is a lifelong journey. I'm super stoked, and I don't want to disrespect it. And when I speak on it, I want to speak truthfully on it. So, because that's the only way that we win is by like staying true to what we know, which is the right, you know. So,
that story about your father resonates so deeply.
It's so sweet though, because I feel like their generation did had on like when they came here, it was almost like a protective thing to not like label themselves as Palestinians. So I can understand how hard that was for them, and it's really sweet that now he has that confidence to own it and say it. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it was really cool to see.
So actually, follow up to this like line of conversation. How about introducing Tatreez to your daughter? I'm curious.
I did.
Yeah.
But not Tatreez. I did. I was like, you gotta earn it. No, I'm just kidding. You gotta work through the white part and get you into the house.
She's Palestinian. Oh my goodness.
No, I know. I'm messing around. No, I think it's so mathematical. She's 4, so I was like, I can't. Let's just see you hold the needle.
Yeah.
So I brought her to my studio one Saturday morning. I put the canvas on a hoop. I'm like, what do you want to do? She has this really cute cat stuffed animal she calls Pom Pom. She's like, I want to draw Pom Pom.
Oh,
we drew Pom Pom, and we did it, and she like did. I was like, oh my God, like
it's in her blood. It's in her blood. Muscle memory.
Yeah, and I think I had just heard the Wafat episode where it's like, you know, muscle memory is just in your thing. And so I was like, oh, I sent a picture to Krista. I'm like, she's doing it. Like, what? And she had like concentration. And she did it for an hour, you know, which is a long time.
That's a lot for a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes. And we did pretty good. And then mom came in, and then it was just like, oh, we lost.
Game over.
And then like I was like, all right, you want to do it again next week? And so we did it for a little bit. And so I think, but now it's Pom Pom just sitting in the on her like bookshelf right now. But I think it's in her. I just don't want to do the whole like, come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Of course, let her come to it.
Yeah, but she's my hummus taste tester. I make her taste it, and if she's like, yeah, it's good, it's not good, I was like, all right. But yeah, I do want a t-shirt. Yeah, I just want her to know as much as possible about this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But like my teta was not Tatreez. She was like at Gile and like talking about like how bad Yasser Arafat like screwed everyone over. Like that's the women I know. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
She was like hanging with like the men, like calling them out on this stuff. So that's, to me, I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to get called out by a Palestinian because I've seen my teta call out.
Oh my gosh, you have like a little bit of PTSD.
Oh
there.
No,
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, if it's there, I mean, the thing I've learned from being a parent is like you have to truly lead by example. And like, if you want them to be in the arts, if you want them to read, if you want them to do sports or whatever, like they have to see you do it. So our house is very like, we have art on the wall. There's a lot of Arabic art on the wall, Palestinian art on the wall. There's books there. It's like my wife's a designer too, so we have that whole aspect going on. So it's like you just put it out, and if they come, great. I want them to touch everything. I want them to like try it, and if the touch isn't feel good, then all right, leave it alone. But like, this is what your house is,
It's like you're just normalizing the culture for them.
Totally, yeah.
You're normalizing art, creativity, and the culture, which I think is really important.
And the beauty of it, because there's going to be so much ugliness shown to them about our culture by the outside.
Yeah,
so when they come home, I want them to know, like, I was talking to a friend, like, movies portrayed us as such, like, villains.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you all can't really believe this is how we are, right? Like, but they're like, no, you're the good one. I'm like, this is insane. I just thought, I was like, oh, I guess you guys are just writing another same story. But I'm like, nobody I know is this guy,
Exactly.
So I think making sure that, like, my kids know what an Arab house looks like, is important. And I'm, with the support of my partner. She wants to learn Arabic, and she's like doing little things to do it. And she read a speech at her wedding in Arabic, and by surprise, it was like, wait, what? My sister like helped translate it. It was really cool.
Oh.
I love it.
So yeah, it's I'm lucky. The house is like accepting of luck. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't accepting. But
for
like,
sure,
it's very nice that it's there. I don't have to fight for it.
Yeah, no, it's extremely important, and it'll make life a lot easier for your kids too as they grow into their identity.
Yes.
One thing I also wanted to ask you, because you brought it up too, being a man practicing Tatreez, like, obviously you had a history of being an artist. You were already an artist before you stepped into Tatreez and made it a part of your life. But you've acknowledged the fact that Tatreez is historically a woman's art, if you will. Obviously now it's 2024. That doesn't exist anymore. Right. So I just want to hear from you what it is like being a man practicing Tatreez in such a female-dominated space.
I grew up with women. Like, my dad traveled a lot for work, so it was like my mom and my two sisters and my teta and stuff. So it was like when she was there. But it was like, I don't feel out of place in a woman-dominated space. Like, I also learned how to weave as well on a floor loom. And for a week, I was around these women who were like between 50 and 60 in Vermont. And like, I was working on my own little art project, and they were trying to make like blankets or something. But I'm just like, I just sit back and listen. I used to love like hearing my mom gossip with her friends, like late night, So I would like come down the stairs and kind of like listen and like, who are they talking about? And just, like, blah, 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 like just like so much. That was like my favorite thing, or like mornings, like like her friend would come over and I would just be like, it's just my mom's like, don't you have anything to do? Don't you want to go? I'm like, I'm good. This is nice. So I kind of like it. But being even if you say it's 2024, anyone can do it. It's still like in our mind that these like textile arts are for women, and that's a way for them to like not value it the way they should be valued. You know what I mean? Because it's just something as like decoration. Like someone was like, oh, you should do like table runners, like Tatreez table runners. I'm like, okay, someone wants like $1,000 table runner. I'm not doing it. Like, if you want, go for it. But it's like the time it takes to do it is like so invaluable. Like, I just don't know. So I don't have a problem with it. I just like it, so I'm gonna do it, And but I'm also just gonna go in and just recognize that like this isn't your space, like this is like a space that you're walking into. And I think that's the 2024 of it all, is that we can be in any spaces we want. I just think we need to recognize the spaces that we're in and acknowledge like who got us here, and then 100%. Move from there,
100%.
So, yeah.
I mean, I can already tell just from our conversation with you, you clearly have a very great respect for the art and the people who came before. And I think that's the most important thing about practicing Tatreez, is having that like respect for the art and the women who came before to like preserve the art for us.
100%.
Okay, want to ask you, I know you are doing a lot of different things, but can you share any of the projects that you are currently working on, or anything that we can share with the listeners?
I have a show coming up. I don't want to get, what is that? The evil eye?
Yeah.
I got something coming up in November. It's
okay, inshallah.
It's like, inshallah. Yeah. But I do have some workshops coming up. So I have one in the Bay in early May. And then I will have some more going on throughout the summer, I think, in Brooklyn. in New York. So if anyone wants to do that, they can. They can always come to my studio and hang out. I'm also like doing like, if people just want to come do like private lessons and stuff like that, like I'm open to it. But yeah, I'm just working on a bunch of big pieces. Like I posted it on Instagram, but it's called The Feathers of Resistance, where I used Wafat's missile. Like this is the one like with story. Like the missiles like blow out, and then the feathers are like the slices represent like the diaspora, and then there's like the flags that connect us. Like it's just fun for me to like actually conceptualize it without doing like an abstract art painting where I'm like, I guess that's that, but I'm like, this is literally what this piece means, and it fits into that piece and that. And then I'm like doing another piece about like one day having coffee in Palestine. So I'm like doing this part right now where it's like the coffee beans and then the bottoms of the coffee cups.
Love.
But aside from that, that's what I'm working on. And I have like paintings and stuff that I'm working on for something that hopefully will happen in November. But things seem to pop up. It's been really nice. Like just like this pops up, and then like it's just the community has really opened up where I feel like I've always tried to force myself into spaces. And as soon as I've like, kind of like accepted being Palestinian, being as vocal as I want to be about it, I've just bonded way better with a lot of people that are new in my life, which has been really, really great.
Okay, well, next time I'm in New York, I'm coming to hang out at the studio.
Yeah, you should. I mean, they should come. You should come to the studio. Yeah, definitely. And then you all should like do a talk or whatever. Like, and I think a lot of people would learn a lot from what you all are doing. So it's really cool. I did. I have. I've been listening to you all. Yeah.
Thank you, Habibi. Thank you. No, we'll don't give us ideas because we'll just plan it. Trust me. That's how Lena and I operate.
Basically, yeah. Basically.
Perfect.
Well, okay. Last question we have for you before we let you go. Are there any major life lessons that you have gained from Tatreez that you'd like to share?
I feel like it's so cliche, but like, you know, sometimes you're working on a big piece and you're just, I love to do tone on tone. Like I'll do a lot of white on white, like a white on canvas. And sometimes it's maddening, especially when I was doing that flag. I was like, what have you done? Like, what is going on? And you start like working on it and you're like, I just want this color to end. I just want this like motif to end. What's going on? And then, but you keep pushing through, you go, and then you realize like all these little stitches that you've been doing, like you've been focused like this on, like when you take a step back, it's like, oh my God, this was so worth it. Like this is so, this is all for a bigger piece. Like, you know, so like for the left, like, you know, it's a cliche, but like it is just like you learn like life is like a tapestry and every little thing is gonna like build to something bigger. And yeah, there are times where you're gonna have to undo a whole section. Yeah. And you're gonna, you know, hate yourself for, you know, not paying attention or whatever. But at the end, it's just like a test in patience. And I think we can all like use a little more patience and like empathy and like love in our lives. So I think it's like that's kind of it, you know. I love it. I mean, I really like. I wish I could do it faster so I can make all the pieces in my head that I have. And I'm sure every like Tatreez artist has that.
We have many unfinished projects.
Yeah.
Very relatable. So, yes.
Yeah, I will not. But the thing is, I won't start a new piece until I finish one piece. So I think that's
I'm
just
like
a
that
thing
too.
Yeah. So then it keeps me on track. But yeah, I think that's really it. And it's just waking up and doing something, even though it's not going to be like it. Yeah, I'm okay with not finishing a piece for like a couple months. You know.
Mm-hmm. That was something new for me actually. That one was something that I had to learn the hard way through Tatreez. Was like you're not going to finish it in one sitting. It's going to take some time, but like if you can, you know, be a little bit patient and get through there, it's when you get to that end, it's just like the best feeling.
That's one of my favorite things to see when people who take the classes when they start. Yeah, it's so satisfying to see them do the first 2 stitches and they're like, wait a second, this is how long it takes to do it. Like how good do you have to be to do it fast? I'm like, this is it. Yeah. This is like as good as you're like, you know, you might go a little faster, but at the end of the day, it's like there's that motion has to happen every time. Exactly. There's no skipping it. So I do like having people realize the amount of work that goes into.
Yeah. It's true though. It's like a level of respect once you understand how long it takes. Yeah. Totally. I always tell people in all my classes, you will not finish this motif. You're not going to finish it in this class. And that's okay. You're going to learn how to start it. You're going to learn how to practice it. And then that's your homework. But people are always, like you said, people are always shocked with like, oh, wow, this takes a long time.
Yeah. But it's worth it. It's cool.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. One last question, small question, which is just how can people follow you and get in touch and all the places they can find you?
You can get me at my website is samsundos.com, and then on Instagram I'm at Sabri. You might have to search my full name because I'm pretty shadow banned, so you can just look up Sam Sundos, but it's at Sabri, and you can find me there.
Amazing. We'll put those in the show notes so people can access them easily.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. This was great. Can't wait to come to the studio. And when you're in the Bay Area, you got to hit me up.
Yeah, for sure I will.
We'll talk to you soon.
This was such a heartwarming conversation. There were so many parts of kind of his experiences that I saw myself in, I saw my parents in, I saw so many of like people in my community. And actually it's interesting, I had a conversation earlier today, just coincidentally, just about this and about like several things. And, we didn't really, I meant to ask him and I forgot, but just about, has he ever tried to go visit in person or been to the Middle East in general? Because in my conversation earlier with a friend, I was talking about how, like, it's interesting because you have all this Tatreez in the house, you have all these things that are very familiar, they're Palestinian familiar, but then you can't really pinpoint what that is. You just know that nobody else has that unless they are Palestinian. And I remember the sensation that I had when I first went to Palestine, like when I was older, and it was like this sensation that like, oh, everything in my house is actually right here in Palestine. And it's different than going to Jordan. It's different than being in like, a different home in like the Gulf, for example. There's something about just the air of Palestine that is very, very familiar. And I don't know, I want to take him to Palestine if he hasn't been. It was just such a sweet conversation.
Yeah, no, it was such a great conversation with him. There are so many parts of it that I just adored. Like, first of all, giving all the love to all the Palestinian Sittas and Tetas, because I feel like they are such an instrumental part, especially for us in the diaspora, but I think all Palestinians in general, like, our Sittos and our Tetas are such a big part of our lives. And I love that his Teta was such a big part of instilling his Palestinian identity into him. That was really, really sweet. And I also I think it's so... we joke around and everything about how Palestinians are so hard on ourselves. But I think, with somebody like Sam, you can see, like, all jokes aside of, him teasing about he doesn't want Palestinian women coming for him and all that, like, you can tell that he has a very, very deep respect for Tatreez and a very, very deep respect for what Tatreez means and not just what it means historically, but what it means to Palestinian women. And I think that's really, really beautiful. You can sense the love and respect he has for the art and for the people who've practiced it and preserved it. And I think that regardless of who you are, male or female, I think if you practice Tatreez, I think that's really, really important to have that love and respect for the art form and the women who preserve the art so that we could practice it today. So yeah, it was just, that was such a, like, I don't know, it was a great moment. And I definitely want to hang out in his studio when I'm in New York next time.
100%.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to Tatreez Talk. We want to hear about your Tatreez journey. Share your stories with us at tatreeztalk@gmail.com, and we might have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform, and be sure to leave a 5-star review. You can follow me at Min Amani and Lina at Lina Stob. Of course, don't forget to follow the pod at Tatreez Talk. We'll talk to you soon.